All right, I'm here with Anthony Quinata. He purchased and is the current owner of Harold the Haunted Doll. Thank you for your time, Anthony. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure.
Okay, I got a list of questions that people have sent in, and also anything extra that you would like to add, and let the public know. Feel free at any time.
Okie doke.
Okay, we'll start with the first question that was the most popular. How did you come to purchasing Harold?
Well, the quick and dirty story is simply that I had purchased another item which I was investigating, which I believe might be haunted. And the reason why I was interested in that is I was actively investigating haunted houses and reports of hauntings, apparitions, and poltergeists. And I thought, well, rather than the Muhammad going to the mountain, I'll just bring the mountain to Muhammad. In other words, if I had a haunted object, I could investigate it at my leisure in my home, as opposed to making appointments, making arrangements, showing up. And I told my team about it, my ghost hunting team, at the time that we talked about it, and one of the girls in my team just threw out this question: have any of you seen the haunted painting on eBay? And my next question was, there's a haunted painting on eBay? And she said, oh yeah, a lot of people sell haunted objects on eBay. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know that. I had been purchasing things on eBay, but they were collectible sports cards or collectible coins, that sort of thing. So the next day I got onto eBay, and sure enough, there was all these people selling all these haunted things. And I thought, again, rather than running around looking for things that are haunted, I could just bring them to me. Well, I purchased three things, and I figured out very quickly, either the people selling them were either dishonest or delusional. That was my immediate impression. And it inspired me to write a book that I was going to entitle Haunted eBay, and the subtitle would have been, Are You Going to Believe Me or Your Lying Eyes? And I thought I'll buy, I think it was 15, 16 items off of eBay, and then write a chapter on each one, and ran through a series of tests, including a psychometrist that I knew at the time named April, and just give the results, to give my opinions, and then let people decide for themselves. I was actually planning on selling this book on eBay. Well, interestingly enough, I saw the Dybbuk box and placed a bid on it. But when I hit the button, it said auction ended, so I missed out on it. But Jason said that actually happened to a lot of people. People were trying to bid on it and couldn't once he bid on it, which they always thought that was interesting. And the Dybbuk box caught my attention enough that I thought I'd just keep going. And I think it was, I don't remember how much later after that it was, but I saw a listing that said, eBay's most infamous haunted Harold, eBay's most infamous haunted doll is back. And I read the listing, and actually it was being sold by a woman named Cassie, who had bought it, who had won it in an auction from the original seller, whose name was Greg. And she didn't put anything of her own up. She actually listed Greg's old listing as opposed to putting her own up. And it had a couple of videos. One showed the doll's right arm moving up in the air, and the other one showed its lips moving, as it apparently said either here or Harold. Either way, I literally started laughing when I saw the videos and thought, oh, geez, how stupid anybody would be to believe this. And I went back and looked at the listing and wasn't going to bid on it until I saw that it had a reserve. Well, I had this odd thing that if any kind of auction had a reserve, and it didn't matter what kind of an auction it was, whether it was coins or cards, or in this case a haunted object, I had to find out what the reserve was. And so I put in a bid of $300 thinking that the reserve was probably $60 or $70 at the most. And it actually triggered the reserve at $295. And so when that stunned me, and I thought, well, hopefully somebody's going to outbid me here rather quickly. And almost immediately I received an email from Kathy saying, why do you want this doll? And I wrote back, I really don't. I was just interested in knowing what your reserve was. And she wrote back, that's how much I paid for the doll. And then she said, I don't believe the doll is haunted. I do believe it's cursed. Well, I, wrote back, why do you say that? She told me some of her own personal stories over the year that she had it. Now, she told me that she bought it to be restored, and that the person who was going to teach her doll restoration, told her it's a good doll to practice on, go ahead and buy it. And so she, according to her, she bought the doll, showed it to the teacher when she eventually got it, and the teacher said, it can't be restored. Just forget about it. So she put the doll away, and over the course of a year, strange things started happening to her and her friends, including two of her friends dying after coming into contact with the doll. So, that was interesting enough. But what happened was, as we were talking, or as we were emailing back and forth, because she lived in Ireland at the time, she's now living here in the United States. But at the time she was selling the doll, she lived in Ireland. I received an email. Actually, I got outbid, which I was relieved about. It was like $305. I was relieved I had been outbid. But then I got an email message saying, don't bother bidding anymore because I'll just outbid you. This doll belongs to me. And honest to goodness, Chris, I got my testosterone going. And I thought, oh yeah, well this doll may be yours, but it's going to cost you. Because I immediately formulated a plan that I'd run up the bids and dump it on him. That was, honest to goodness, that was my plan. I even told Kathy that. I even said, I got this joker here. I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to run up the bids. I'm going to dump this on him. And, she tried to discourage me, but, I had my mind made up. Anyway, we kept outbidding each other, and it actually became kind of funny. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering who these two idiots were, bidding on this doll. But in the meantime, Kathy and I just kept corresponding back and forth to make a already too long story a little shorter. About 4 minutes to go, I placed a bid. I think his bid was like $690, so I placed a bid of his bid was $700. I placed a bid, and eBay put it in at, I placed a proxy bid, and eBay put my next bid in at $720. And again, there was 4 minutes to go, and I thought, well, let's see, we'll run this up to like $800 and let it go. Well, 3 minutes to go, still no bid. 2 minutes to go, still no counter offer. And I thought, well, he's going to snipe the auction at the last moment. All of a sudden it said, auction ended, you won. And it was like, what happened to this guy? Now I got this doll, I never wanted. Don't believe it's haunted. Not sure, it might be cursed because she told some great stories. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And Kathy immediately wrote me and said, you don't have to honor, the deal. And I said, no, deal's a deal. I'll send you the money, you send me the doll. And she said, I'll tell you what, if you send me the money, I'll wait for 2 weeks, and if you decide you still want the doll, I'll ship it to you. But what I'll do is I'll take half the money, I'll give it to a local children's hospital, and I'll give the other half to some charity. I don't remember what she said the charity was anymore. And I said, don't bother waiting, just as soon as you get the money, send me the doll. Oh, she did wait 2 weeks, actually. And then what was kind of funny there was she wrote to me and told me that she took the doll to the local post office in Ireland, handed it to the guy behind the counter, watched him put it away. As she's driving home, within 10 minutes, it was announced that the UK was on a postal strike. She believed it was Harold. I believe that was funny. But about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, Harold showed up at my door, and there I was with this doll I didn't want.
Wow.
But I will tell you this: after all the stories she told me, I did do a couple of things. One, I pulled out a tri-field EMF and a natural EMF meter, and nothing on those. Took a bunch of pictures, nothing. Put it back in the box and just kept thinking about all the things she had told me, and I had copies of the emails at the time. I was reading them over, and I thought, well, better safe than sorry. Put a crucifix in the box with it and some holy water. Actually, it was in a Dwayne Reed bag that was in the box. So I put it in the Dwayne Reed bag, put the Dwayne Reed bag, which is a drugstore chain on the East Coast, as you might well know, and then put that back in the box and made an appointment with my friend April to have her take a look at it.
Wow. So, now the next question leading into that someone sent in is, how do you feel, about Harold when you got him compared to now?
Great question. As I just said, I took him to April, who is a very gifted psychometrist. A little on the loony side, and I mean that in the best possible way. She was a lot of fun. A bit dramatic at times, but I took that into consideration. But again, a very, very, very gifted psychometrist. Now, I didn't tell her I was bringing Harold. I did bring some other things, including the uniform of a railroad worker that he was wearing when he was shot in the heart back in the 1920s, and his family still wasn't sure whether it was a robbery or a revenge thing, and she actually nailed that. She nailed that it was a robbery. She nailed that he was shot. She saw the bullet hole and thought a moth had eaten through it. And, it was just really odd the way she picked up on all that. And literally everything that I handed her, she corroborated what the seller said on eBay that particular day. Anyway, I brought out Harold, and she said, "Oh, is that Harold the doll?" And I said, "Yeah, you know about it?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, it's been all over the internet." And I was really disappointed because I didn't want her to know anything about it. I was hoping she didn't know anything about it. And again, to answer that question directly and then to develop the answer, I had my doubts. Did I believe it was haunted? No. Did I believe it was cursed? I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't think it was cursed or haunted, to be honest with you. But I pulled it out of the bag, and still with those doubts, I still sprinkled it with holy water and put a crucifix in front of it. And April said, "You're sprinkling it with holy water?" And I looked at her and laughed and said, "Yeah, better safe than sorry." So then I handed her the doll, and the first thing she said was something about a child molester. Now, I should back up and say, throughout this entire session that she was reading everything, I was recording it on a digital recorder, just in case, I wanted to review, I wanted to review it for my book later, but just in case I caught any EVPs. So the first thing she said was something about a child molester, and then she was saying some other things, which I honestly don't remember at this time. But what I do remember was she started crying and handed the doll back to me, or wanted to hand the doll back to me, and she said, "I can't do this anymore," which stunned me because she'd only had it for about a minute and a half. And I asked her why not. She said, "The doll just threatened to kill me." And I looked at her and I said, "What?" She said, "Well, I have a heart murmur, and it feels like the doll is grabbing my heart." And I was just like, okay. Like I said, I'd known her at that point for about 6 years, and I'd known her to be a bit dramatic, so I didn't take it seriously, to be honest with you. I took it all back, put it back into the Dwayne Reed bag, put the holy water crucifix in, thanked her, we went to lunch, lunch. I went home, was listening to the recording. Finally got, nothing on all the other stuff, but finally got to Harold the Doll. And when I pulled the doll out, started sprinkling it with holy water, first thing you hear is what sounded like a man screaming in utter sheer agony and pain. I mean, literally howling in pain, which startled me. It wasn't a Class B EVP, it was Class A. And then he said he was sprinkling it with holy water, and then the next thing I heard was, "Shut up, bitch." And then the screaming started again. I said, "Yeah, better safe than sorry." Well, then she said something about a child molester, and this man literally howled again, but this time in anger, not in pain, in anger. It was definitely a male voice. And then she said, she couldn't do it anymore because the doll just threatened to kill her. Right before that, I heard very clearly, "I'm going to kill you, you bitch." When she talked about her heart murmur and how it felt like somebody, like there was a hand squeezing her heart, you heard the most evil laugh I'd ever heard. I should say, I heard the most evil laugh I'd ever heard. And that told me something's going on. So I decided to go ahead and pursue it. I literally took it to a number of different psychics. I took it I tried to take it to a psychic I knew in California, or knew of in California. She took one look at it, took 3 steps back, and said she didn't want to have anything to do with it. I said, "Well, obviously you saw something, you're getting something from it." She nodded her head, and she said, "Please take it away. I don't want to do anything with it." And I said, "Can you at least tell me, what you're getting?" And she shook her head and said, "No, please take it away." Well, her mother showed up, and they were both professional psychics. And I said, "What about your mother? Maybe your mother can help me." She said, "I'll talk to her." She walked up to her mother. They were speaking at our meeting, or whatever the heck it was they were speaking. And hands are flying around, eyes are wide. Finally, the mother looks at me and says, "Go away. We can't help you." And I said, "Won't you at least look at it?" She said, "No, go away. We can't help you." I took it to a woman who does tarot card readings, and she again talked about a child molester. I again recorded it. After the tarot card reading, we were both listening to the recording, and when she talked about the child molester, you heard a lot of cursing on the EVP, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw her scratching her head, and then she looked down and dropped the F-bomb, like, "What the F?" And then she said, "Look at this. Is this a bite?" And my first thought was, I saw you scratch your head. You're not going to fool me. And I looked at it, and there were 2 indentations in between her thumb and her forefinger. And I swear to God, Chris, it was a bite. Like 2 little teeth.
Wow.
So I asked her, "Do you have a ruler here?" She said, "No." I found a stir stick and found a Sharpie pen, marked the 2 indentations in her hand, held it up to Harold's painted teeth, painted on teeth. They matched exactly.
Wow.
And that's when I started thinking something weird's going on. Well, it was just the 2 of us in this conference room. We showed the doll to a couple of her coworkers, and we're telling them what happened, and she's showing her coworkers the bite. Well, one of them says, "What happened to your eye?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It looks like somebody punched you under your left eye." And I looked, and sure enough, it was red and swollen and getting bigger. And I held Harold's little hand up to it, and it matched exactly. So, there's stories like that started making me think something's going on here. There might be something to this. Now, I'll tell you 1 or 2 more quick stories. A friend of mine named Angie, I was actually trying to do my own tarot card reading with Harold. And I bought like a couple tarot cards. I think I bought 1 or 2 tarot card packs. And I sat Harold on my kitchen table and did a card spread. I don't remember what the card spread was. It might have been the Celtic spread because that's pretty common. And started, reading what the book had to say. When my friend Angie called and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you don't really want to know. What's up?" She said, "I just wanted to know if you wanted to go to lunch." This was like 11 in the morning. I said, "Sure, that'd be fun." She said, "I'll see you in 30 minutes. Well, 30 minutes came and went. She still hadn't shown up. And by this time, being in front of Harold for about an hour, hour and a half, I mean, my energy was gone. It was drained. So I got up, put the cards away, put the books away, but left Harold there. Went into my bedroom. Sorry about that. Went into my bedroom and took a nap. Well, all of a sudden, I hear just a minute. That's enough. Stop it. My 2 dogs are playing. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Anyway, I hear my name screamed out, "Anthony!" And I jumped up and I said, "Angie, is that you? Where are you?" And I came running out of my bedroom and I'm so sorry, Angie. I was tired. I took a nap. I even forgot you were coming. And by the time I found her in my living room, she was plastered against the wall next to the front door, just crying her little eyes out. And I said, "What is wrong with you?" She points towards my kitchen area, or my dining room area, and says, "Is that Harold?" And so I said, "Oh my God, I didn't put him away. I'm sorry." And I ran and put him away, and I came back out. And I said, "What happened?" She said, "I pulled up, and I parked. I got out of the car, and I just had this feeling I was in danger. And I couldn't shake it. I didn't know where it was coming from. I came up to your door. I knocked on the door. You didn't answer, but the door was open, so I came in. I kept calling out for you. I couldn't find you. Finally, I walked into your dining room, and there's Harold sitting there looking like, well, the carrots were good. Do you have any peas?" And she said, all of a sudden, I knew why I was afraid. She said, "I ran towards your front door, and something stopped me from leaving. I could not go through the screen door." He said, "I was literally pushed back." And then she said, "I threw myself against the wall, started crying, and that's when I called for you again." And I just couldn't apologize enough. And then I took Harold after that to the Stanley Hotel. And I had been at the Stanley Hotel enough that I had quite the reputation, at least with the employees there, so that when people would come and say, "Is this hotel really haunted?" they would say, "Well, Anthony Quinata, so you can ask him." And they'd say, "Well, who's Anthony Quinata?" "Oh, he's a paranormal investigator." And so, they literally send them to my room, which, I guess they had permission. I never told them to, but, they know he's in room, whatever room I was at. So, invariably, I'd have several people hanging out in my room. On this particular day, again, I had Harold with me because my assistant director for my team asked me to bring him. I had him in the closet. There was 10, 12 people in my room. And I said to her, "I brought Harold." And she said, "Oh, where is he?" I said, "The closet, I'll bring him out." So I brought it out, put it on the bed, sprinkled it with holy water, and this young lady there said, "What's the deal with the doll and the holy water?" I said, "Well, hang out for about 10 minutes, you tell me." And this guy who was standing there says, "Well, I'm from Manhattan, New York, and, we New Yorkers, we don't believe in that bullshit." I said, "You don't, huh?" He says, "No." And I said, "Well, then you hang out for 10 minutes, you tell me what you think." "Yeah, okay." Well, I noticed that Christine was laying on the bed, and actually sitting on the bed and leaning forward and looking directly at Harold, like eye to eye. And just, staring at it. He was like staring back. And I said, "Wow, you're brave." She says, "Not really. It's scaring the living daylights out of me, but I won't give in. I won't let it have the satisfaction." So we were talking for a few minutes. I noticed it got really quiet in my room. And I looked at her and said, "Where did everybody go?" She said, "I didn't even notice they left." Well, I went out into the hallway. There was about 6 of the 10, 12 people still there. They said, "What's up, guys? Why are you out here? You know, and what are you talking about?" And the guy from New York looked at me with wide eyes and said, "What the hell is going on with that doll?" And I said, "Why? Why don't you tell me?" And he said, "I swear to God, it was like that doll wanted to kill me." And I couldn't help it. I laughed. I said, "I told you hang out long enough. You know, something's going to happen." And then, you know, people kept coming by the room, and then coming up to me and asking me, "Why you got that doll?" And I'd say, "Why?" They would tell me things like, "Well, I took one look at the doll and developed an instant migraine," or "I felt sick to my stomach," or "all of a sudden I was hurting all over." And again, keep in mind, I was skeptical still to this day. Well, all these things started happening in my final story here, and then I'll bring it up to the present as to how I feel about it now. Somebody asked me, "Has Harold ever hurt you?" And I said, "No, because I have tons of holy water that knows better." That night I was playing on my Xbox. I was sitting in a chair playing my Xbox. Stood up. My right knee gave out. I collapsed to the floor. Tried to stand up again. I could not stand up on my right leg. This went on. I mean, I would go for walks. I'd keep collapsing. Finally, I went to see my doctor, who also happened to be a sports physician. And he said, "You know, what's going on?" And I had said, my meniscus is torn. Chris, I would have known a meniscus from, you know, my diaphragm. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know what the hell a meniscus was. I had never used the word before. It just came out of my mouth. My meniscus is torn. And he says, "Why do you think that?" And I said, "Well, I was sitting in my chair. I stood up. My knee collapsed. My knee gave out from under me. And now every time I go for a walk, I keep collapsing." He says, "Well, I don't think it's your meniscus. You probably just strained your knee. And, you know, put a brace on it." And I said, "I'd like an MRI." He goes, "You don't need an MRI. It'll heal itself." 8 months later, I finally, you know, said, "We have an issue here." And he said, "Anthony, if your meniscus was torn, you'd be falling down every time you go for a walk." And I said, "Apparently you missed me telling you that 8 months ago." Well, he says, "Okay, I'll order an MRI." Within 30 minutes of him getting the MRI, he was on the phone with an orthopedic surgeon, scheduling an appointment for surgery for me.
Wow.
And turned out my meniscus was almost entirely gone, arthritis had set in. And, you know, he's like, "Anthony, I'm sorry. Nobody tears their meniscus sitting in a chair and standing up. That's why I didn't believe your meniscus was torn." Did I tell him about Harold? No.
Yeah, right.
Shortly after that, I put him in storage. This was 2005. I originally got him in 2004. 2005, I put him in storage. Took him out on occasion. Showed him to people on occasion. And then finally took him out 2013. And now, I'm not convinced it's haunted, to be very honest with you. Not in a traditional sense. I am convinced it's cursed. And I am convinced there's something, and I just started thinking this literally weeks ago, something demonic going on with this doll, and it took me a long time to even admit that. But we can talk about that in just a bit if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, yeah, now here's, you know, relating to what your last statement is, you feel, you know, Harold's demonic in nature, like the Dybbuk box showed, you know, a malevolent and angelic side. Has Harold ever showed you a nicer side?
Actually, here's the deal. On occasion, it's actually protected me. But that's because there seems to be a demonic entity, a malevolent entity that was a one-time human, and then 3 souls that were trapped that are trapped within the doll. In addition to that, there's apparently a woman who is trying to get those 3 souls free. And the one time that stands out really in my mind, I was working with a guy who wrote television shows. He wanted to do the television show not about me and Harold, but about me as a professional psychic medium. And he sent me a text, and he said, "Do you have a minute so I can ask you a question?" And I wrote back YES. It was just about to hit send when YES turned into TRAP. And I looked at it, and I thought, what in the world? So I deleted that and wrote YES and sent it to him. It turned out later on it was, in fact, a trap. He was milking me for information so he could do another show with somebody else.
Oh, jeez.
Now, I do also believe that one of the reasons, now, when people ask me if I've been harmed, usually they mean physically. Quite frankly, I have been harmed in a number of different ways, with regards to relationships, career opportunities, just, my own mental health. I've gone through periods of depression. But there always seems to be someone throughout all that protecting me. Otherwise, based on reports that I'm getting from other people, it could be a hell of a lot worse. So is it an angelic side? I think it's somebody who's protecting me so that I can free these 30 souls. Of course, I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian. I'm a Roman Catholic Christian, actually. And I believe that God, Jesus, St. Michael, the Blessed Mother Mary, I believe they're all protecting me, from what, like I said, is a demon, although I didn't realize the extent that I've been protected until probably 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that leads into the next question. How did you come to the view that Harold's demonic?
John, look at these questions. I have to go back to 2013 and just kind of give a backstory. What happened was I was at Back East, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, Anthony, look what I found at a flea market today." It reminded me of Harold. She sent me this picture of this doll, and my Facebook friends were like, "Who's Harold?" So I posted a picture of Harold and said, it's a doll I got on eBay back in 2004, supposedly haunted, but I'm still, investigating it. To be honest with you, it's in the story tutor because I do believe something's going on. Well, within minutes, people were messaging me and commenting. I looked at this doll, got a headache. I looked at this doll, became nauseous. I looked at this doll, started vomiting. Looked at this doll, my computer froze. All kinds of stuff. And so I thought, well, heck, that's interesting. And I was again back east, and then I came back to Denver, where I currently reside. I've been back here for 2 years now. And the same friend of mine, LaShawn Coker, wrote to me again and said, "Did you see this YouTube video about Harold?" I said, "No," and she sent me the link. And when I looked at it, I was stunned. Because the reason why, in all honesty, I put it away in 2005 up until 2013 was I was hoping interest in a doll would eventually die down and not go away completely. And that way I could continue investigating it and nobody would know about it. And the Philip effect where, people actually create a spirit out of nothing just because they believe in it would actually be a factor. And when I found out from that video, because there were 33,000 hits on it in just a matter of a couple of weeks, that interest hadn't died down. It was still just as strong as ever. And I went back a couple of days later. Now there's 36,000 hits. So I decided to watch it, and everything on that video was from the original eBay listing. The problem is, that Greg, who originally wrote that listing, later admitted it was all a hoax. That, he had made it all up, hoping to get a few bucks off the doll. That none of it was real. Come to find out, Kathy knew it was a hoax as well. When she bought the doll, she was hoping to flip it for a quick profit. So, I went online, or I made a comment on the YouTube video, that I own this doll, and none of that is real, that it was all made up, but there is something going on with the doll. I did say that. I said, I will tell you that there is something going on with the doll. What it is, I don't know, but there is something going on with the doll. Well, the girl who made the video said, do you own it? She said, how do you know? And I wrote back, because I own it. I've owned it since 2004. And somebody wrote, no, you don't. She wrote, prove it. And I wrote back to the guy who said, no, you don't. I said, if you're about to claim you own the doll, you better be able to prove it, because I'm going to. I went over to a local gas station, bought a USA Today newspaper, called my friend Camille, and told her what was going on with the YouTube video and how I bought a USA Today newspaper because it had the date, big letters, and, big, letters and numbers. And I was going to go to the storage unit, pull the doll, take a picture, send it to this girl, and, just kind of say, all that really is just a big old hoax, that there's something going on with it. She's like, oh, good idea. Well, before I got to the storage unit, I went to a Walmart to buy a new lock from the storage unit. When I heard Camille had better not ever, that's how she put it, Camille had better not ever come near me again. I didn't think anything of it. And took the doll out, brought it back to my hotel room, put it on a bed next to the USA Today newspaper, and you can still Google it and find that particular picture. Took a picture, sent it to the girl who lives in the UK in England, and then went and got a cup of coffee. Well, I started thinking about Camille again, and that warning, so I gave her a call, and I said, how are you doing? I answered hello, and I knew immediately something wasn't right. I said, how are you feeling, or how are you doing? She said, I'm really sick. I said, what do you mean you're really sick? She says, I go between hot spells and cold spells, and, I'm just feeling really nauseous, and I want to vomit all the time. And I said, well, when did this happen? She said, right after we got off the phone. And I said, I'm going to call you back. I got up from Starbucks, went back to my hotel room, grabbed a bottle of holy water, started splashing that doll with holy water. I was like, don't ever attack anybody I love again. And I kept splashing with holy water until finally, my anger was vented. And I stopped, and a few moments later, I heard, okay, she's all right now. I called Camille, and she sounded like her usual self. And I said, how are you feeling? She said, oh, much better. And I said, really? She says, yeah, it all just left suddenly. And I said, when did this happen? She said, just a few moments ago. Well, again, the skeptical side of me started going, huh, you know what I mean? Maybe there is something to this doll. Then, since I had him out, I took him to a clairvoyant I'd never met named Erica. And she never looked at the doll. She never touched it. She barely looked at it. But gave me a reading. And then told me at the end, by the way, I don't believe this doll is haunted. I said, why is that? She said, I don't believe spirits attach themselves to an object. And I said, okay. Well, I took the doll, put it back in storage. The next day, I was having lunch with Camille, my friend Camille, and she said, what happened to your arm? And I said, what do you mean? She said, it's bleeding. And I looked, and there was this long gash with fresh blood coming out. And I was like, huh, I don't know how that happened. She said, well, what do you think happened? I said, I think Harold pissed. I put him back in storage. She's like, well, let's go get him out. So we got him out and took him back to my hotel room, and about a week or so later, Erica called me and said she had this feeling like she needed to get a hold of me, and would, I have lunch with her. Actually, would I have dinner with her? So we went out and had dinner. She asked me to do her favor. I said, I'll do you that favor if you'll do another reading on the doll for me. And she said, okay. So she came to my room the next day, did another reading on the doll. She said, I don't get anything. I get the little girl you told, and that's it. And I had a crucifix next to it, and I said, here, let me remove the crucifix, see if this helps. I removed the crucifix, and first she shook her head no, and then she said, wait a minute. Now a man just showed up. And she started telling me about this guy, started telling me about the little girl, and how the little girl was this guy's little sister, and how she died in an accident, how he was blamed for it, and how he was killed, but before he was killed, he was cursed to be trapped within the doll. Well, I'm enough of a skeptic that you can tell me anything you want, but I want proof. So I was like, well, thanks. So that's quite a different story than what you told me last time. She says, I know. But that's what I got this time. Well, a couple of days later, I get this email from a young lady who says, the next time you talk to Harold, please tell him, and she gave me a name, and I need to backtrack and say that Erica gave me a name, and she said, it's like Annabelle, but it's not. It sounds like Annabelle, but it's much longer than Annabelle. But when you hear it, you'll know it because it sounds like Annabelle. And so I wrote her back, and I said, well, who are you? She said she was looking through YouTube for some country music to add to her collection, and she saw a little thing on Harold that I put up, and she immediately knew that doll because she'd been having dreams about it for years, and when she was a little girl, and she owned that doll. And when she said, when she first wrote me and said, the next time you talk to Harold, tell him, and she gave me a name, says below, that name sounded like Annabelle. So after she told me all that, I said, I've got an appointment. May I call you back after my appointment? May I get back to you after my appointment? She said, sure. After the appointment, to be honest with you, I forgot all about it. An hour and a half later, I finally wrote her. And again, she's telling me all this stuff, and she's telling me things that Erica told me, but she's telling me that she experienced these things in a dream. So I asked her if I could call her, or she could call me. I gave her my phone number. She called, and I said, the reason why I'm talking to you is because a psychic gave me a name that sounds like the name you gave me, but she said it's longer. And then this girl said, there's the name, and she gave me two names, started with an A, ended with an LLE. Sound right to you? And I was like, oh my God, who are you? And she said, I've had these dreams ever since I was a child, that I was carrying around the doll you're calling Harold. And that I had an older brother who was my half-brother, which is what Erica told me about this girl, that her older brother was her half-brother. And she's telling me about where she grew up, which matched what Erica told me, which is where all this supposedly happened. We started talking, started Skyping, started emailing, and then one day she Skyped me and said, I know how I died. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, I know how I died. I died from that doll. And I said, how did you die? She said, I fell out of a tree, which is exactly what Erica told me. That this girl was climbing a tree, had a hold of the doll, fell out, cracked her skull. Her older half-brother got blamed for it, and he's the one trapped in the doll in his name, and he's the one, Harold, although that wasn't his name. Now, this woman told me that his real name was, he gave me an entirely different name. So, Chris, the point is, for a couple of months, that's what I was going on. And in fact, Erica said, when you go down to somewhere around the Louisiana border, when you go there, there's a plantation, and the name's going to sound like, and they're going to know about this story about this little girl dying and about her older brother being killed, but it's going to be like a folk tale. But when you go there, somebody's going to know how this happened and what you need to do to get this young man released from the doll. So that's what I'm operating on. Well, a friend of mine named Colleen was telling me about a couple of friends of hers who were cops, and they had formed a group of cops. A paranormal team comprised of a group of, cops, call themselves Lockdown Paranormal. And she said she was telling them about the doll. They asked if they could investigate it. Well, I never had the doll formally investigated by a team with, equipment and such. So I said, sure, ought to be fun. They spent 3 hours with the doll. They had an obelisk. They were doing EVP recordings, all this other good stuff. They went, and one of them was reviewing the evidence, and he told me that he heard a demonic laugh, which made no sense to me, and he heard what sounded like children screaming, which made no sense to me. And he also told me that as far as his group was concerned, he didn't want to be within 10 miles of Harold ever again. He wanted nothing to do with it. Thank you very much for letting him investigate it, but they're done. He said he would send me a report, which they never did. I finally found it on their website. And then I finally got it out of his partner what happened to him. The guy who was talking to me on the phone. I talked to his partner because he refused to talk to me ever again after that. His partner said that while he was listening to the EVP recording, and he heard the demonic laugh and the screaming, and all this is on the website I have for Harold. All of a sudden, he felt as though he had been hit in the back of the head and the small of his back simultaneously with a baseball bat. He ended up on the floor for 30 minutes, unable to move. And that's why he was convinced that one, it was demonic, two, it was dangerous, and three, they wanted nothing more to do with it.
Wow.
So, I know. And they still will not return my email. Still will not return, to this day, will not return my email. Will not have anything to do with me. Will not have anything to do with the doll. Fast forward to 2000, that was 2013. Fast forward to 2014, the former owner of the doll, Kathy, said, how would you like to do a radio interview about Harold? And she told me it was Dave Schrader, who I'd never heard of. And I said, I'll do this interview on one condition. He said, what's that? I said, one, you do the interview with me, and two, you come clean about this whole thing being a hoax. And how you knew it was a hoax, and how you wanted to flip the doll. Because, it turns out later, people are going to think that I was conspiring with you behind this fact. And she said, okay. Got on it, to her credit. She talked about how she knew it was a hoax when she bid on it. She knew it was a hoax when she bought it. She intended to flip it. Couldn't get, dollar store. Ended up keeping it for a year and all these things that had happened. And then I took over from there, telling my side of the story. And then I think it was about 2 weeks later, I get another call from Schrader, who said, by the way, you know who Zach Bagans is? I said, yeah, Ghost Adventures. He says, yeah, they're going to do a show in Island of the Doll. And Zach thought it'd be a great idea if they could bring Robert the Doll down there with them. And I told him, are you crazy? Robert's in a museum. They won't let you take him anywhere. I do know the guy who owns Harold the Doll, though. Let me talk to him and see if he'll let you guys use the doll. So he talked to me, and I said, well, I need to talk to somebody and get reassurances that this isn't going to be a prop, this isn't going to be a toy, this isn't going to be made fun of, because this is a real deal, and if, they don't handle it correctly, somebody's going to get hurt, and I do not want to be responsible. Yeah, no problem. I get contacted by, Ghost Adventures. We talk. I tell him my story. I didn't tell him any of Kathy's stories. I only told him all of my experiences. We talked for a period of 3 or 4 days. I was assured that it wouldn't be a prop, it wouldn't be a toy. I kept saying, here's the deal. The left arm is coming off, so I really need you to be careful with that. Okay, we promise. We'll be careful. We'll handle it with kid gloves. That night, somebody in Australia who was helping me research the doll wrote to me to tell me, because night here is morning there, that the night before, he was on the computer researching composition dolls. Her husband said, why don't you take a break from the computer and come outside and have a smoke with me? He was standing out in the garage, and all of a sudden her husband says, do you see that over there? And she looked and she said, there was a shadow of a man 3 meters tall, which would be like 9 feet. And she said the odd thing was that the lights were behind this figure. Wasn't behind them, casting a shadow on that wall. The lights were on in front of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So whatever she was saying wasn't a shadow. Okay? She said we could see head and shoulders. She said my husband took out his camera, started taking pictures, and darted off to one side, she said, like he didn't want to have his picture taken. And all of a sudden he started screaming at the top of his lungs. And she said, what's going on? He said, my left arm feels like it's being ripped out of its socket. And I took it as Harold did not want to go violent with the doll. But by that point, it was too late. I had already agreed to send it out that day to, the Ghost Adventures or my Tupelo production. And so I did. And before all that actually happened, while it was going on, I started promoting the idea it was going to be on Ghost Adventures. And people started reporting strange things to me, like my friend, a personal friend of mine, Mary Ann, told me she was fast asleep, and she woke up when she heard a little boy call out her name. She sat up and went, who are you? And nothing. So she went back to sleep. The next morning, or the next night, she was sleeping again, and this time she heard her name screamed out in such a way, she said it was like angry or distressed or something. It literally shook her bed. She jumped out of her bed, ran around her small apartment trying to figure out who was in her apartment. And she said, do you think that has anything to do with Harold? And I said, no, because what I've been told is the young man who is in there. And so she's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. All I know is I heard a little boy and a woman screaming. Well, then, my flow was keeping me somewhat informed as to what was going on throughout the week that he was gone. And what I was told was that this thing scared Zach to the point where if they would have shown what was going on exactly as it happened, it would have made him look bad. Because he was so terrified of this doll when all was said and done. They had to re-edit it and redo it, so that he played a lesser role in the show, which was a disappointment to me with no disrespect to Ghost Adventures. It was a disappointment to me because the bottom line reason why I agreed to it was because I was hoping that they would have the equipment that would give me an idea as to what's going on with the doll. Who this guy was, how he got stuck in there, you know what I'm saying? I told my friend Kalila Smith, I said, once the show airs, I'll know what direction I'm supposed to go with this, and if I'm supposed to go down to Louisiana or whatnot. So, when they showed the show, and here's a psychic medium saying, there's 5 spirits in it all. My first reaction was like, what? No way. I only know of one. So I thought she was dead. Then, the doll came back. Like I said before, I stay in a hotel. I still stay in a hotel. I'm in a hotel room now. And I was doing laundry, and I was taking my laundry. I was taking laundry out of the washer, putting it into the dryer, walked back to the washer, and slipped on a puddle of water, which wasn't there a moment ago. And the only thing that saved me from cracking my skull was I was able to grab onto the washer and a table. At that exact same moment, the girl at the front desk was signing for Harold. He'd come back home. And apparently was none too pleased with me.
Yikes.
So, anyway, shortly after that, again, to be very honest with you, I was very disappointed. I decided I was going to do my own investigation. Started doing vlogs about it, stuff like that. When I got a message on Facebook from this woman who said, and this wasn't the first message along these lines I had received, but she said she was looking at a picture of Harold on her iPad, and her son, who's 6 years old at the time, autistic, and from moderately to severe autism on that spectrum, he was in between moderate autism and severe autism, looked at the doll and said to his mother that the mother wants the children to come out into the sunshine and play, but they can't because they're stuck. And she said, I don't know if this means anything to you, but I just thought I'd let you know. And I said, well, thank you. If he says anything else, let me know. Well, about a week later, he sent me a picture of a painting he had done in art therapy, and the art therapist, she was behind the glass watching all this. The art therapist said, what did you just paint? And he said, this is a doll on my mummy's iPad. And on it were 5 figures, what he called the black blob, and then 4 white figures, and one of the white figures had some black in it, the other ones had gold. And that was my first inkling that there was actually 5, quote, spirits in the doll. Over the next 6 months, things got worse and worse and worse for this poor young man. And then one day, she sent me a video of him running around the house holding an Xbox or something controller. He was watching a video or something. And he's now 7 years old, and it was just heartbreaking to watch. He's running around screaming, trying to hide, trying to get away from something nobody could see. And he kept screaming, not again, not again, not again. And I asked her to ask him to draw for me what scared him. This was like the next day. So he drew another figure like he drew in the painting, like he painted in the painting. And this time he wrote 2 names next to that figure. And the names were in Hebrew, in Greek, and they both were the same name of a demon in the Bible.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I said to myself, holy crap, I was wrong. Because this young man has no imagination whatsoever. His mother was telling me when we first started talking, he was taking swimming lessons. He was doing so well, his coach yelled, "You're on fire!" He screamed, jumped out of the pool, thinking he was on fire.
Wow, yeah, so that explains how you came to the view that he's demonic, and that's a really good explanation.
Well, I gotta tell you, I wasn't real sure it was demonic until about a week and a half ago when I was doing a vlog, and I had statue of St. Michael on the nightstand in front of this bag, big bag. That luggage, by the way, goes to mention, I don't know where the hell that thing came from. But when you see Zach going into the shack and he's then zipping the bag, you know, to bring out the doll, when all hell breaks loose, the doll starts laughing. Sounds like cats are screaming. Sounds like, you know, fighting. Sounds like a man screaming. That's the bag that Harold's in now. That's the bag I've had him in for a couple of years. In fact, my friend Camille bought it for him to protect his arm. Anyway, I bought a St. Michael statue, put it in front of that bag. I was doing a vlog. When all of a sudden I hear this noise, and the vlog is up on my YouTube channel. I hear this noise, and I see the statue stuck between the nightstand and my mattress, upside down. My first thought was it fell. In fact, on the vlog I said, it fell. I don't know how it fell, but it fell. And I'm thinking maybe the dog knocked it over or whatever. But when I looked back on it, it became obvious to me that that thing was lifted up, turned upside down, shoved between the mattress and the nightstand, breaking off one of the wings. As a way to tell me, you think St. Michael's going to help you? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's like, you know, F St. Michael, F God, and F you. Because it shook me up. Not so much then, but when I started thinking about the implications, I'm laying in bed going, holy crap. You know, whatever he says, obviously, has no fear of anything religious, which I thought it did. And then I thought, and now it's sitting 4 feet from my head. I got up and that thing in the bathroom, closed the bathroom door. It's been sitting there ever since. That's when I thought, now I know this thing's demonic. Was when it happened to that statue. Like I said, there's a video on there. And, you know, somebody said, well, I think it was a vibration. And I literally, you know, debunked all the possible explanations because it was good. Anywhere from 14 to 19 inches away from the edge of the bed. It was sitting on the sheet, so, you know, it couldn't have just been pushed forward. But the idea was upside down. There was only one way I could do it, and that was to lift it up, turn it over, and then shove it down in between that space. And that is when I became convinced. That's when I started using the word demon. Because I refused to call it a demon, even though April, when she first did the reading after that, she would call the doll H-Boy. And H wasn't for Harold.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
I used to laugh at her and shake my head. Like, what do you say? Well, it's the boy from down south.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, literally like 2 weeks ago was when I finally said for the first time there's Steven involved here.
Ah, good. See, that leads great into the next question is, you know, have you had any dreams about Harold? And if so, what kind?
Actually, I have like 2 or 3 dreams, but I'll tell you about one right off the top of my head. I told you about the interview with Dave Schrader, okay? And this is documented. It's on my Facebook page about Harold, because I wrote about it after it happened. I was taking a nap, and while I was taking that nap, I had a dream that I was in a shack, and if I remember correctly, there were 3 Hispanic men speaking Spanish in this shack. And I remember being in there with Harold, but not only Harold, there was a ton of dolls all around the shack. And these men were all speaking Spanish, when all of a sudden, the shack caught on fire. The 3 men ran out of the building. I grabbed Harold, ran out. We all stood there watching all these dolls burn in the shack. Well, if you remember, if you saw the Ghost Adventures episode, one of the things that happened was Zach took the doll into a shack filled with dolls, and that's when all hell broke loose. And while he was there, apparently, a fire started by itself. Now, I didn't know what to make of that fire until my friend in Australia, I said something, and at that point she was barely talking to me, and I found out why. She had a dream in which she was told, break away from Anthony. And I asked her to describe the dream. She said, that was really it. I was standing in a fog, I couldn't see anything, and a voice came out of the fog saying, break away from Anthony. Well, one man had a vision in which he believed he saw three of the entities in the doll, and they were all surrounded by this thick fog. And I said to her, unless your house is on fire, I need you to talk to me. We were communicating over Facebook Messenger. She said, you know, funny you should say that. An hour ago, her husband was burning palm tree fronds, and he's done this for years, like 7, 8 years, so he knows what he's doing. But all of a sudden, the fire made a beeline for their house. And he had to go run and grab a hose and, you know, put out the fire before it actually got to their house. But he, according to her, all of a sudden, it like jumped the barrier and just started burning its way towards their house.
Wow.
So, something about this doll and fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's, you know, I don't know how to even phrase it, to be honest with you. You know, it's like he's telepathically doing something.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I love the way you say that because I have so many stories about that. I had a friend until an incident with Harold where she refused to talk to me ever again, kind of like the lockdown paranormal guys. As I mentioned before, I am a professional psychic medium, so I do a lot of these sessions literally around the world because I have a book that selling around the world, Communications from the Other Side. Just a little plug there if you don't mind. It is selling around the world, and most of my business is done over the phone because I talk to people around the country and around the world. But as long as I lived in Long Island, I did a session for her. We became friends after that, and she wanted another session, hoping to connect with her mother. The first one she connected with her father. And somehow, before we started the session, she brought up Harold. And she said, yeah, I've been thinking about Harold, and I was thinking that what you ought to do is talk to Estrega about him. And Estrega, for anybody who doesn't know, is an Italian witch. And I said, let me guess, Lisa, you know Estrega. She said, well, my grandmother. And I said, well, isn't your grandmother dead? She goes, yeah, but yet she comes through. Ask her, you know, what you should do about Harold. And I said, you know, honestly, Lisa, it's not a good idea to be talking about him like that. And she started laughing. She's like, oh, Anthony, what's that dog going to do to me? You're in Denver, I'm in Long Island. What's it going to do to me all the way over here? And I kept telling her, you need to tone it down. You need to stop. And she just kept laughing. It's like, you know, if he's come all the way over here to Long Island, tell him he's welcome. And it got to the point where I said, I looked at the doll and I said, you know what? Just for the record, it's not me who's saying that, but she whose lips shall never pass, she whose name shall never pass my lips again. Well, we both started laughing at that. Later on that day, I was going to give a talk to a group, and up in Genesee, which is in the mountains here in Colorado, and Camille and I were together, because she sings for me a lot of times when I do these little talks, and we actually went to Buffalo Bill's grave, and we were looking at that, and I was in the gift store when I get a Facebook message, and it was from Lisa saying things were falling off her wall and flying off her shelves. And she asked, is this Harold? And I wrote back, I told you not to tease him. I told you to tone it down. And then she said, oh my God. Or she wrote, oh my God. And I said, what? She said, I just heard a loud bang in the kitchen, and Blue, that was her 160-pound bull mastiff, she said, ran into the kitchen to investigate. Then she said, or she wrote, that Blue just screamed as though somebody or something was trying to kill him. ran out, back in the living room, was sitting at her feet, his tail tucked between his legs, shivering with his ears laid back. That really scared her because that was her alarm system. That was her guard dog. That was her protector. And, you know, he's acting, you know, he's coming to her for protection. And I said, what's going on now? She said, I still hear things, you know, falling on the floor and breaking. And he said, where are you now? She said, I'm in the bathroom. And I said, where's Blue? She said, on the other side of the door. And I wrote back, I said, are you kidding me? Do you really think that a door is going to protect you from this dog? And I said, let your dog in. And so she did. Well, the next morning, I wake up, and there's a long Facebook message that starts with, I'm not a medium, I'm not a psychic, I've never claimed to be, I never wanted to be, but last night, the spirit in your doll came and talked to me all night long. And then she started writing, she was telling me things in this long Facebook message that I had only thought about the day before. And she said that, quote, Carol told her, Anthony wants to do this. And I was thinking, holy crap. I was thinking of doing that. But I was only thinking about it when I went for a walk. I didn't tell anybody, and he wants to do this. And I was thinking, holy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was. It blew me away. I had no idea what to think. And one of the things she said was, Carol told her, Anthony wants to write a book, and I don't mind if he writes the book, but he wants to make a movie about me, and that I don't want him to do. And I was thinking the day before, maybe I'll make a documentary movie, because it's just all so weird, you know. What little has already happened, it's just so weird, and I don't know if I get it across in the book. And then he said, all he wants to do is make a carnival sideshow out of me, and that afternoon, before I thought, you know, oh yeah, great. You know, why not make a carnival sideshow out of him? Just, you know, being facetious.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Well, I called her up, and I talked to her, and she said the entire night, it was like he was sitting next to her bed, just talking away. He said, he said, I'm afraid of Anthony. He's like a father figure to me, but he's mean. And I said, I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, I kept him in storage for like 8 years. Maybe he's talking about that.
Yeah, maybe that upset him.
But shortly after that, I got this crazy idea to let him watch TV. And so I turned on Duck Dynasty. I'm thinking he's from the South. You know, these guys are from Louisiana, wherever the hell they're from. I turned on a tri-field. They said, so you like this show? The needle started going crazy. I'm like, okay, I'll let you watch it, you know. And I took him to a psychic about a week or so later. She says, by the way, he wants you to know he really does like watching TV. And this whole time I'm thinking, this can't be real. This can't be real. I know it was a hoax. This can't be real. I'm just trying to figure out what is real. You know what I mean? You know, starting from the EVPs with April. Just weird things like that keep happening. And like I said, I've had several relationships and literally career deals kiboshed. And one day I was thinking about it, and I heard this female voice said, yeah, I did that. And I immediately thought, well, what the hell for? She said, I need you to stay focused on helping these children. And I thought, well, good point. If I would have gotten into these career deals or whatever, these relationships, I would have, forgotten all about the doll. And the thing is, with the relationships, I'll be like talking to a woman and, we'll be laughing and joking, and all of a sudden, the phone was shut off. He'll turn it back on, call her back. Say, I'm sorry, my phone shut off. What do you mean your phone shut off? It shut off. And it shut off again. Finally, after 3 or 4 times, usually these women are like, I don't think Harold likes me.
Yeah.
And they never talk to me again. Lisa in Long Island hasn't talked to me in over a year after that. Scared her after that. She wants nothing to do with me or the doll.
That's weird. That's, yeah, amazing. Like you said, about watching TV, that's another question. Where do you keep Harold most of the time?
Up until yesterday, he was in my room with me because it was just easy access if I wanted to whip out a digital recorder or a REM pod or a SB Spirit box. Plus, I think, remember when I told you about Erica?
Yes.
And it was the first time she'd ever seen the doll, and I put it next to her. She looked down at the doll and she said, "It's happy, it's no longer in jail."
Makes sense.
And I was like, "What?" She said, "You just told me it's been locked up for a number of years, it's happy to be out." And then when I put it back, got that long gash, I took it out again, and it's just been with me ever since. Now, I will tell you this. When I go from this hotel where I live, it's an extended stay hotel, to, even if I switch rooms, I can tell the difference in the atmosphere from this room to another room in the hotel, or from this hotel to another hotel room that I'm staying at. It's almost like I forget how heavy and oppressive the atmosphere is here until I go somewhere else. But I put him away for a couple different reasons we can talk about in a few minutes if you'd like. Put him somewhere else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love to hear. Regarding.
So up until yesterday, he's been next to me for about almost 2 years now. So, people are like, "Aren't you afraid?" Well, I wasn't until a couple of weeks ago when that St. Michael statue got broken.
Yeah, I think that would do it to most people.
It did it for me. It did it for me. It really did. All of a sudden, I had a newfound respect for it. Speaking of which, by the way, I've come to the conclusion, I do want to make this clear. I don't think I own Harold. I think I'm its custodian. I think that this demon owns Harold. So I started thinking of it as the devil's doll. Because the young boy in Australia drew a picture for me, and he drew this black blob, as he called it, or he's been calling it the black thing, above his bed in his bedroom, which is why he wouldn't sleep in his bed for like 5 or 6 months. And then next to the bed on the floor, there was a figure, looked like a little girl, so I asked his mom to ask him if it was, and I gave her the names of several women associated with the souls that are trapped in the doll. I've been able to do enough research. I know who's in the doll. And so she said, "Is it so-and-so, is it so-and-so, is it so-and-so?" He kept shaking his head. And then finally he looked at her and said, "Mommy, why should I think it's a girl's doll, but it's not? It is a black heart." And that's all he would say. And then she said, "Well, why did you draw it in there?" And he said, "Every time the black thing shows up, the doll comes with it. They always show up together."
Wow. Now, a question is, like Jason, after all the activity he had with the Dybbuk box, and he sealed it and put it away. Is that something you ever thought about doing with Harold?
I eventually will, but there are 3 spirits, and the the young boy, again, I have the video on my YouTube. It's very short, like 30 seconds. And his mother says, Uncle Ant wants to know what to do with these. And then he, basically pointed at three. He says, these three want to come out. These two need to stay where they are. And just today, as a matter of fact, literally just today, I received a message on Facebook from a young lady on eBay, in the UK, who told me about a dream she said she had like 2 or 3 months ago. And he said, I didn't think much of it. I just started watching your vlogs, and I thought I had this dream because I was watching your vlog. She said, but I just can't let it go. She said, I keep thinking about it, and I keep thinking I need to tell you about it. And I said, tell me what happened. She said she saw the doll, and she saw 3 figures. And she said, I think one was a girl and 2 are boys. And she said, I heard a little male voice say, tell Anthony I'm afraid. And I said, how old was this, little boy? She said, he sounded like he was my brother's age, so he would have been between, I think she said like 10 and 13, 9 and 13, which is exactly the age of one of the kids in the doll. I've been able to determine that.
Yikes.
One of the kids is around 10 or 11. But when she said that, tell Anthony I'm afraid, it just reinforced for me, I cannot do anything until I get these 3 kids released. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to let them move on before you...
Exactly. And whatever this demon is, although I do have a name, another man had a vision, and he just happened to come upon heroin. And he told me he's an insomniac, and one day he was sitting, laying in his bed. His 3-year-old son was next to him. His wife was on the other side. He had closed his eyes and was trying to sleep, when all of a sudden he said he was surrounded by this thick fog, and he said it was almost like he was the light in the fog. And a woman and 2 little boys came forward towards him. And all of a sudden, he said a man whose face was horribly burned came out of the fog, leered at him, and then an arm came, and the arm had claws up for hands. Snatched the woman, or the female, and the 2 boys, slung it behind the man. The man looked at him, he spurred, and then the whole vision ended. He drew, actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't 2 kids, it was a woman and 1 child. He said there were 2 boys standing off to the side, if I remember this correct. I can't remember. He said there were like 2 other figures, so there would have been a total of 4. Okay? I asked him to draw a sketch. He had a professional sketch artist draw what he saw. And off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, it was the man, woman, and a little child. From that sketch, and from the information my little friend in Australia gave me, I was able to match the sketches to actual people. And just based on the clues that the young boy in Australia gave me, actual people, and one of them, a man, died in a fire. And if you look at the sketch, and, you kind of have to look beyond, what looks like burns and stuff. I have like 2 or 3 portraits of this guy, and everybody goes, holy crap, that's him. The really weird part was it took me a few weeks before I finally showed the young boy's mother, because I didn't want to scare her, I didn't want to influence her, or, tell her what's going on and have her influence her son. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
She looked at the picture, and the first thing that came out, first thing she wrote on Messenger was, he looks like a child molester.
Wow.
He looked at this man's portrait, and I didn't tell her until it was almost all said and done. I said, several people have described this man in this portrait who looks like this guy in this sketch is a child molester. And she said, do you think that's why it's picking on my son? And I said, I think your son knows something that, he doesn't want anybody to know. And that's why he's going after your son and scaring him the way he is.
That's, amazing, and that's great. And one thing I know you get asked, which we'll get out there for everybody listening, and I'm pretty sure you get asked the same thing, that number one, the biggest, Harold is not for sale. You're not for sale at all.
I've been offered a lot of money for him. Okay? I've been offered, I'll just say that, I won't say who's made the offers. I've been offered a lot of money for him. The reason why I won't sell him, the reason why I won't put him in a museum, which is another thing I hear, why do you put him in this African museum? Why do you put him in the Warren Museum? It's because it's going to sit there, and it's going to become a display, and these three souls are going to be forgotten. Now let's say the three souls get released. All right? Will I sell them then? Absolutely not. I'm probably going to go to Jason and say, help me build a box like the one you have. Because my thing is, how do you put a price on evil?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't.
No. I mean, honest to goodness, I wouldn't give this damn doll to my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. I feel like I was chosen to own this doll for reasons which will come out in the future. I feel like I was chosen. I feel like I said, I'm its custodian. And I feel like the woman, the mother of these three children, or the mother figure of these three children, is counting on me to release these souls. And I cannot tell you enough. To me, this is what paranormal investigating is about. It's not going into a home and going, yeah, you have a ghost, see you bye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're finding out, why are they there? What are they doing? What do they want? How can they be helped if they can't be helped? Finding out the history. Finding out verifiable, concrete proof. It's like, your house is haunted by a woman named Sophie. Well, who's Sophie? Hell, I don't know. Well, how do you know? Right? All you've done is freaked out a bunch of homeowners, which is what a lot of people do these days. You and I both in agreement on that. It's one of our pet peeves about this whole deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, it goes in a museum and sits there. It's on display. One of the world's most, quote, haunted doll. And again, I don't believe it's haunted because I'm in Denver, and this thing has visited people or attacked people or whatever the hell you want to call it around the world. It's not just localized. It's not big here. Everybody asks me, does it move? No, it doesn't move. If it did, I'd tell you, but I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It doesn't get up and walk and talk. It doesn't do a Chucky thing. I love what Kathy said. She said it doesn't move. It just sits around and hurts people. And the typical, quote, spirited haunted doll, they'll tell you how things disappear from their hotel or from their room, or things get moved or change its position. And I have things like that. This doesn't do any of those things. You understand?
Yeah.
I now have a woman contacting me from the UK who all of a sudden, after it ended in Australia, believes she's being visited by this doll, and she didn't know anything about it.
That's strange.
Isn't it? Well, actually, the people that I found, like the, quote, child molester, the guy who died in the fire, and the three children, all have ties to the UK.
Wow, yeah, it's got to be... So you're piecing the puzzle together.
It's been a 1,000-piece puzzle, 500 pieces missing, and until recently, no picture to go on.
Yeah, that's... like you said, that's good, and... to back up a little on what you're saying is, like you said, why we get along and the older people in the field is, you're not you didn't just, like you said, go into a house, play some EVPs. This is a ghost. Oh, you know,
Right.
we'll come and clean it. Is you're doing what everybody should do, and you're not going to finish until those spirits are released to where they should be.
And the answers, you know, to the questions are found. That's why I agreed to do this interview with you, Chris. I respect you. You're one of the few people in this field. I respect your point of view. You and I may not always agree, and we've talked about this, but who cares? You know, who agrees on anything? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
But I appreciate your practical, no-nonsense, no hype, no drama approach.
Oh, well, I definitely, appreciate it. And like you said, people, we disagree to agree, but we always respect each other.
Exactly.
There's none of like you see on Facebook, the drama. Oh, you know what this one said? We always just, well, okay, and we leave it at that. We don't start getting all huffy-puffy and take it personal. And you see so much of that. It's like, really? You're an adult and you're talking like that?
Well, I've gotten so much flack like that over this call. I can't even begin to tell you. I can't even begin to tell you. You know, and it's okay. There are downers, there are skeptics, there are cynics. I don't mind that. But then there are the people who try to fit it in with their, quote, spirited doll. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, just tell it to be nice. Oh, really? What was that? Why don't you just put it in a museum? And I said, for the same reason why they don't put serial killers in a carnival sideshow.
Yeah, seriously. It's not going to be a good ending.
It's not. I keep trying to, tell people. And again, I just recently came to this conclusion. This isn't, your typical run-of-the-mill, quote-unquote, haunted doll. There's something evil going on here, and it's bigger than I ever imagined.
And that's, and you're going to continue until you get every answer you want,
Exactly.
and the spirits are where they should be. And I think that's the biggest thing, people got to know.
Yep, and, until then, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Am I going to bury it like Jason did the Dybbuk box? That's a real strong possibility. If I'm told that's the only way to contain this, then that's what I'll do. So, Kathy and I were talking, and the woman who I got the doll from, and I told her, I said, perhaps the most accurate thing you've ever said about this doll is Annabelle's got nothing on Harold.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I mean, it ain't just what I see. My personal opinion between Annabelle and Harold is Annabelle. There's only one story that goes with her by two people, basically, and that's it. Now with Harold, you have a long track record and many first-hand witnesses who experience things. So you can't go by, you're like, okay, the credibility of two people for one doll, right. But you're saying like, well, who else? Where's the proof? On the other side, you got Harold where, hey, you can talk to A through Z and they're all going to tell you something that they could back up the facts. So yeah, Harold's, in my opinion, he's in a league of his own.
He really is, and to be honest with you, especially with this one child, he has given me things, and as far as evidence goes, without, calling it evidence, is unwittingly given me things that, keep in mind, he is autistic, that I was able to verify that he has no way of knowing. For instance, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I said I just put the doll away yesterday, or put it someplace else yesterday. This is the reason why. I was fast asleep, and I woke up, and I was laying there, couldn't go back to sleep, and I learned since then, time to get on Facebook and message my little friend's mother. And before I could do that, she messaged me and said, I'm sorry to bother you. She didn't know whether I was asleep or awake. She said, I have to tell somebody, the house is officially up for sale. Her husband, who was a skeptic about this whole thing 6 months ago, is now terrified to be in his own home. Now, she also said that her son told her, now I didn't mention this, but I gathered enough evidence with her help and with her son's help to call in 2 Catholic priests who were initially going to start the process of determining if anything needed to be done. You know, psychological evaluations, all this other good stuff, right? And I told her, when they get there, because this isn't my first time around the block, this is what you do step by step by step by step. Instead of it taking weeks to determine, or even say days, within a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, these 2 men, these 2 Catholic priests went back to the car, talked to each other, got their bishop on the phone, and got permission right then and there to conduct a deliverance ritual to help this child. And ever since then, he's been fine. After the deliverance ritual, he went outside and was singing at the top of his lungs. Next day, he was playing with his next-door neighbor, something he hadn't done in months.
That's awesome.
You know, he went back to school just a couple of days ago, and his teacher said it's like he's a whole new person. And but he did say, as he was talking about one thing, and he said to his mother that there was a woman who sings. She's so happy she sings. That's why he's singing. A few days later, he said to her, she's sad. And she told me, he said, she's sad. I said, well, did you ask why she's sad? No, I asked. And he told her she's sad because she has to leave and go help somebody else. And I put on Facebook, I think that somebody else is me. Anyway, yesterday morning, like I said, she said the house is officially on the market. Her husband, without consulting her, without discussing it with her, put the house up for sale. You know, because he's afraid for his family, right? And he said to her, or the little boy said to her, that because of the, quote, 2 superhero old guys, the 2 priests, we can't be hurt anymore. But he came to me again and says he wants to hurt Uncle Ant. And I asked her several questions, and he was really vague about the answers, and she kept saying, he's talking about a certain color door. He keeps talking about a certain color door and saying Uncle Ant. That's what he calls me, Uncle Ant. And she said, does that make any sense to you? And I said, yeah. That color is the color of my hotel room door. And then she didn't believe it, so I took a picture and I sent it to her. And I said, ask him to draw what he's seeing. So, a few minutes later, as he's drawing this thing, he kept saying, Uncle Ed, and then a number. Specifically the number 3. But then she sent me a picture of it over Messenger. And Chris, I will show this to you personally. I'm not going to make it public because I'm really paranoid about that stuff. I originally had the doll in one storage unit, and a couple of friends of mine, and included, said, you know, people are going to be looking for that storage unit. They know you're in Denver. They're going to visit every storage, facilities, trying to find that storage unit. So I moved it. My point is, this picture shows the front of my hotel, which he's never seen. I even showed it to, the hotel staff. Like, oh my God. I said, this looks familiar. Like, yeah, it's the front. He drew a picture of it like a bat, this thing with 2 horns, and then he drew a name on that picture. So I went up to the front desk clerk later on that day, and I said, do we have anybody staying here by this particular name? And it's just the first name. And she says, yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. And I said, well, how do you know so quick? She said, well, I used to know him from where I used to work. In fact, you recognized me first. Didn't you work at? Oh, yeah. And she said, so that's his name. And I said, what floor does he stay on? Third. So he kept saying Uncle Ant 3. And then he drew another picture of a window. And I went around the hotel looking out the windows, and then there was a huge black block in the window, which I couldn't figure out. And I kept thinking, this looks like, this should be the right window, but I don't see where this black thing is. Finally, I walked up towards it. I stay in a hotel where I'm surrounded by hotels. You know what I'm saying? It's like Hotel Row.
Oh, okay, yes.
And the hotel across the street has a tower that's painted darker than every other part of the hotel. And I realized that's what I was looking at in this picture. And I was standing 2 doors down from where this guy stayed. And that demonic-looking thing is in that hallway. And I realized that this demon has now come home, if you get my drift.
Yes.
And that's why I decided to move it. Because I don't know what this guy has to do with anything with this doll. But I sure as hell don't want to break into my room to steal it. And, because all of a sudden he got motivated to do that. I honestly still don't know what he looks like, but when I see him, I'm going to shoot him with a silver bullet. And then when he's laying on the ground, I'm going to drive a wooden stake through his heart. Then I'm going to tie him to a wooden pole and set him on fire. I'm going to take our mace to bury in the concentration ground. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah, we know you're kidding, but yeah.
I'm not taking any chances.
Yes, as we know, you obviously the better than anybody, and there's people that would do that, find what room you're in and break in to try to steal Harold.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I just, notice as sure as I know I'm talking to you right now, somebody's going to try to steal them. And they just don't know what they're in for if they do. They have no clues what they're in for, if they do. My next step is to find a demonologist who can help, who hopefully can explain to me, what I need to do regarding this thing. And then my step after that is to find out how this happened, how 3 souls get trapped, and how to release them. And after that, like I said, hopefully I'll know what I'm supposed to do with it in order to get it contained. Maybe after the 3 souls are released, when the 1 soul remains in there, calm itself down. Because I believe those 3 souls have a secret or are hiding a secret or a part of a secret that one of the souls doesn't want known, including this particular demon. So my thought now is that the 1 soul that's been calling itself Harold, and interestingly enough, there was in World War II, there was a pilot who died in a plane crash in a fire, whose name was Harold, about the same time this guy died. So I think he adopted that guy's identity. So even though Greg and his brother thought they were making the name up, I think that name was given to them. Even though they thought that they were making the whole thing up as a story, I think they were inspired to do it. And like I said, I think it ended up in my hands for a reason, but it was no accident. Just like Jason doesn't believe that the Dybbuk box ended up in his hands by accident. I believe I was chosen to take possession of this doll, pardon the pun.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I agree. And like we said before, Jason was called, to the box. You were called to Harold. You didn't. Neither one of you went out really looking for him. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, and pretty much you both have the same thing. You both got them off of eBay. You were both just curious, and now you both had experiences with those items.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I read his story. He thought it was a hoax. When it was all said and done, when he wrote his book, he thought the darn thing was a hoax. He found out later on it wasn't. You know what I mean? I was okay with it being a hoax. To be honest with you, when I found out the whole thing was a hoax, I was a little pissed, right? And I wrote for Hank, and I said, you know, I understand that this whole thing was a hoax, but I got to be honest with you. I can't vouch for Kathy's stories, but I can tell you I had my own experiences. And he never wrote back. In fact, I wrote him several times. He finally wrote back once and told me how he acquired the doll, and it fits right in with the history of the doll I put together so far. So, you know, as far as evidence goes, as far as proof goes, I have a ton of it from this young boy and his mother. Thank goodness. She keeps spending a lot of money to send me things and like I said, there is no way he could have known any of this stuff. And once I start revealing it, once I have everything resolved, and it seems like the closer I get to the truth, the angrier the demon gets. It goes on the attack. So I told his mother, I said, I'm glad I don't have to worry about your son. All I have to worry about is myself now. And that's why at first I did the interview with you, then all hell broke loose in their home. And then I canceled the interview with you and with Jason Ducks, I think is his name, because I didn't think it was coincidental that this poor boy was, all of a sudden being attacked in the worst way. She sent me a picture of him hiding in a walk-in closet, and you wouldn't recognize it was the same kid. I mean, it was disturbing.
Yeah,
so
that's too bad.
That's why I canceled it. Yeah, that's why I canceled the interview with you, initially, because I had to concentrate on helping this little boy. And then when the priest came in, did the deliverance, it's just like, okay. Now I'm willing to talk about it, because now if there's going to be any reprisal, it's going to be against me.
Yeah, now, before we wrap it up, is there anything else you would like, the people listening to know?
Well, a lot of people tell me I'd love to have that doll. And I keep responding, no, you really don't. This is the real thing. Do I understand it? No. Have I been able to wrap my head around it? No. Do I know all the answers? I'm just beginning to scratch the surface. But this is the real thing. And I've never read anything like it in any of the literature that I've read. Dr. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she suggested maybe it's a jinn. I ruled that out. I've listened to all kinds of people, all kinds of theories. And, I've stuck to my guns and insisted on verifiable proof. Otherwise, I'd be running literally from Haiti to South America to South Africa to Scotland, all over the place, tracking down these, leads. But what this little boy has given me has all been verifiable. And in the very near future, I will reveal everything once these 3 souls are released. I will reveal everything, and it will blow people away, even the hard skeptics. I have a man here who lives in this hotel, and he was extremely skeptical until I kept showing him, what about this, what about this, what about this? And now he says, you know what you ought to do? You ought to burn the damn thing. You ought to take it into South Dakota and bury it into, Black Hills and stuff like that. He goes, you don't need it. I thought you were a skeptic. You're like, I was.
Yeah, there's always people like that. You gotta love them.
Yeah, I mean, even the hotel manager acknowledges its presence, and things have been happening around here. And he said to me, in the 20 years I've been in this industry, I've never seen. He said, I've seen these things happen, but not with the frequency they're happening now in this hotel. He said, I can't help but wonder if it's your doll.
Wow. Yeah, well, That's like I said, definitely, I know me and thousands of others have a great interest in Harold, and definitely can't wait to see when you come forward with all the evidence and you put it out there.
I will, I promise. I have to protect the identity of that family, for obvious reasons. His mother put it, he has enough, problems with his autism. He doesn't need to be known for this. And so I assured her, but everything that he's drawn, if it doesn't have his name on it, I don't put it out there. And if it does have his name on it, I'll have it photoshopped off. And, everything he's painted, everything he's written. One day he was drawing a Matchbox toy, and he turned the paper over, and then he wrote two names. His mother asked me if they made any sense. And I asked my researcher to take a look at it. And she said, wow, these are two brothers. And I believe it's the two boys in the doll.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so intrigued, obviously, and like I said, thousands of other people, and it's the answers I can't wait for.
You know what's crazy, Chris? I've gotten contacted, not, like with experiences, people from countries I've never heard of have contacted me about this doll asking questions. People from Muslim countries have contacted me about this doll asking questions. Russia, Iceland, Finland, South America, North America, Australia, Canada, all over the Philippines, Thailand. And I'm just like, how in the world does everybody know about this doll? I've been trying to keep it a secret. And to be honest with you, I'll just end with this. I can't tell you how many times I've regretted going public about owning a doll. I really cannot tell you what a pain in the tush it's been for me. Having, people know that I owned a doll and having gone public, and, telling stories and hearing stories and sharing stories. But by the same token, if I had gone public, this young boy and his mother would not have found me, and I'd still be years away, if ever, from finding out the true nature of this doll, which is the original reason I put it on Ghost Adventures. His mother has never seen the Ghost Adventures show. She's never even seen Ghost Adventures, Ghost Adventures episode. She heard about the movie The Conjuring, was looking up Annabelle. There was a reference to Harold. She was reading about Harold. Her son walked by, looked at the doll, and that started this whole ball rolling. And so every time I think to myself, I wish I'd never done this, I think, if I had, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, everything happens for a reason, like they say.
It does. It does. I cannot thank you enough for, doing the show with me. To be very honest with you, I don't know that I'm ever going to do another show about this until after it's all said and done. Because everything I just told you is pretty much the corner of what's going on with this doll since I've owned it.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate you, giving me the time and, the full history and everything about Harold, and, it's definitely greatly appreciated.
Well, you're welcome. And honest to goodness, I'll just end with this final thought. If this wasn't happening to me personally, I don't know that I'd believe it. But this has become, and Aaron Goodwin quoted me on this, because I said this, that he repeated it, and he wasn't copying me, but it's the way he felt. I said, this is like a real-life horror movie. He was a little more graphic with his language. But, it's true. It's like living through a real-life horror movie. What started out as a hoax, and I told this to Greg, has become a real-life horror movie. And poor Greg doesn't know what to think. And like I said, if it was happening to me, Chris, honest to goodness, if I were sitting here listening to this, I'd be like, whatever. But I swear by right hand to God, everything I told you is true. And there's a lot I haven't told you.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it, and I believe you is why I asked you to do this interview.
Well, you know what? It's been a real pleasure, actually. Thank you for letting me talk on and on it. As you can tell, I had a lot to say. Because, like I said, I don't know that I'm going to do another interview until all is said and done. And you'll probably be, more than likely, like 99%, be the one I call to do the follow-up interview or with.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. And again, I do appreciate it, Anthony.
You're more than welcome, Chris. Thank you.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, well, I'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Take good care now.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.